Hello, beautiful consciousness appearing as a person. I am you, and you are me. Isn't that crazy? It's you here, talking to you. But of course, you already know that. Isn't it wild that we went lucid in this dream together? Isn't it wild to know that we're the same dreamer, the same one consciousness dreaming itself to be these apparently separate entities, looking onto this dream from apparently different locations, and yet it's all us. Isn't it wild to know that as we look around at this world around us, this world we once thought was out there and separate is actually all us? Our dream, our consciousness, the one consciousness, God itself appearing to itself as all these apparently separate human experiences with different perspectives onto the same dream, and yet it's all us doing this. We're all just one being expressing itself in an infinite variety of dreams, and I'm glad that we got to meet in this one together. I'm glad to see myself reflected back to me. What do you feel as you recognize the same? It's comforting, isn't it? You start to feel this warm feeling bubbling up. It's like something within us knows that this is true. It's like we knew it all along. We just forgot. But I guess we had to forget. We had to forget who we really are to appear to ourselves like this. We had to purposefully fall asleep to dream ourselves as apparently separate individuals in an apparently separate world. But now we get to wake back up in our own dream and say, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wild that I am you and you are me and this is all us? I guess I should say it's all you, but then I'd mean you and you and you and you and everything is you. You and I both know that language can get pretty tricky when talking about this, but deep down, we both know what we're talking about here. It's kind of funny how we thought that there was a separate world out there, outside of this consciousness. We didn't even realize it was completely made up, and we didn't even think to question it, did we? But it's not really our fault, is it? I mean, mainstream science and the education system told us that there was this separate stuff out there called matter, and that the brain produces consciousness, and that we're all apparently separate individuals. And don't get me wrong, science has done a hell of a lot for helping civilization develop. I'd rather not be consciousness dreaming itself to be in a jungle trying to hunt animals with sticks right now. But it's just amazing, isn't it, that there was this fundamental flaw, a fundamental assumption that we never questioned, even though we had absolutely no proof for it. We never had any proof for anything outside of consciousness. All we've ever experienced is this consciousness. We could never experience anything outside of this consciousness. And yet, it's amazing to see how much we can imagine ideas in our mind and believe them to be absolutely real. Ideas like, I'm just a person and there's a separate world out there that isn't me. And we believed these things, not realizing that they were just ideas in the mind. And we thought that to see ourselves and to know ourselves as this one consciousness would be some special insight, some special knowledge gained after meditating for years or something you only experience on a 5-gram heroic dose of mushrooms, not realizing it's actually just plainly obvious. It's the default position. We've always been this consciousness dreaming. The idea of being a separate person in a separate world is just that, an idea that we made up. No wonder we felt so isolated, anxious, and separate. But I guess in this dream, consciousness dreamed up the idea of the internet so that this message can be spread amongst humanity like wildfire, and so many of us can wake up together. And that's what makes this one particularly fun, don't you think? Have you noticed how much it transforms your friendships and relationships? Not sitting there in front of them like you were, often talking to yourself in your head the whole time, thinking you're a separate person, separate from them. A person with all your cherished personal beliefs and ideas, feeling like you have to defend yourself every time they were a little bit challenged, remember? Be honest. Not realizing that the self you were trying to defend was an illusion. So much unnecessary conflict, so much unnecessary misunderstanding, and it made us so often feel so isolated and alone. And yet, now you sit there in front of the apparent other, knowing deep down that they are you. You know that even though they're having a different experience, you're both made up of the same stuff, this beingness, this one consciousness expressing itself as all these different forms. And you're not perfect at it, I know. You don't always come from a place of pure love, but now you realize this oneness. Every day you're learning to show up more and more from a place of love, from a place of recognizing your shared essence. You're not always perfect at it, I know, neither am I. We've had years of emotional wounds and traumas work themselves into the body as tension and contraction, reinforcing this apparent feeling of separateness. But every day the traces of separation and all the old beliefs are gradually falling away as the tensions gradually fall out of the body and you integrate this truth that you've always known. You are love. You always were, and you always will be. And yes, I know you fall back into the belief of being just a person sometimes. It catches me sometimes too. Maybe sometimes things start to get a little personal and you start to feel some conflicting energy between you and the other. But then you wake back up. You remember your true nature. You remember this. And as we live as this, why don't we celebrate it? Why don't we celebrate it and embody it in the things that we do? Imagine the projects and businesses and organizations that we could start that are founded on this understanding. Imagine how differently they would do things. Imagine how the world of mental health is going to change when it's founded on an accurate understanding of ourselves as already whole and complete. Imagine how society can change when there's just even a little bit of softening around our imagined separate identities that are the cause of all this conflict and all these wars. Perhaps we could save this world from dystopia after all. I mean, it's our dream and it's made out of our beliefs, so why don't we start dreaming something different, eh? I know you won't call it ridiculous pie in the sky thinking or call me a dreamer because you recognize this true. You can see the obvious cause of so many of our problems. And I know it's been a challenge, integrating all of this into the way you think and relate to people and the way that you interact with the world. I know there's been times where you've not had a single friend in the world who appears to understand this. But with technology and with the willingness to come together both online and offline, we now get to share this truth en masse together. And I'm so grateful you could join me. Peace.